we're the last today.
But the best.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I know you are, because we heard a lot today about collaboration, about UX guidelines, about metadata, about all these things. And if you look at collaboration, I know there's one group within WorldDAB, and that is the Automotive Committee, User Experience Guidelines, all combined. And you are the chair, and you're the vice president of WorldDAB, and you're leading this group and doing a lot of things about that. So, Gregor, let me start with you. What do you think the Automotive Working Committee and the UX Group, what are you doing, and why is it so important, that work that you're doing?
Yeah, as we talked already and heard a lot of it, we are facing challenges. As Ole just said, radio can't be taken for granted. If you can't find it, you can't use it. And that's where we started more than 10 years ago to push that forward, to make radio prominent by actually implementing the user guidelines. But this is not like a one-time effort, write some guidelines and everyone is following it. No. Never gonna happen. So there's always a new thing you need to put on top of it, be it voice search, be it metadata, always new topics. And there are also new OEMs and new broadcasters appearing, knowing nothing about those topics and need to be knowledged and trained to actually build on top of the guidelines.
Well, talking about guidelines, I know, Nick, you wrote a lot of the texts in the guidelines, and a lot of things are happening around that. Can you enlighten us on the UX guidelines?
Sure. I mean, the purpose of the UX guidelines is to channel all of the experience and all of the knowledge that we've got in this organization and from hundreds of broadcasters into a piece of education for car manufacturers. And as Gregor said, it's not a one-time event. Like most industries, you know, people leave roles, new people come in. What we find a lot of the time is people who are looking after radio in the car have an increasingly broad portfolio of lots of complicated infotainment things to manage, and they really value input on how to make radio work. That it's not something that they're used to, it's not a domain that they understand themselves. So the purpose of the user experience guidelines is to bundle everything up into something that's very accessible for somebody in an automotive manufacturer to use as a guidebook, what makes a great radio experience. And then equally, there is a section in that for the broadcasters to say, if you want this radio experience to work really well in the car, these are the things that you have to do as well. So it's educating the broadcasters on what to produce and the manufacturers on how to present it.
Oh, we also heard about Radio Ready today. How does that relate to each other?
Radio Ready is, if you like, we're the cookery book, and Radio Ready are the chefs.
Ah, the cookery book.
You know, Radio Ready is a great collaboration of people with energy to communicate and make the case for why radio should be prominent and easily accessible in the dashboard. But past that, once you've kind of got to that decision and that understanding of, yes, it should, somebody needs a cookbook. You know, you need to give the developers, you need to give the product managers more detailed instructions of what specifically do you need to do, and that's the purpose of the guidelines documents.
That brings me, before I go back to you, also to the workshops. You organize a lot of workshops. Can you tell me more about them?
For sure. I mean, one of the things that we see is when things have gone wrong, it's not because anyone decided for them to go wrong, it's just because people misunderstood something. And it is a complex area. I mean, it's a complex business. We have thousands of broadcasters globally. We have hundreds of car manufacturers with different models and makes of vehicles. You know, when you're trying to dig the tunnel from both ends, sometimes it doesn't meet quite in the middle. The purpose of the workshops, and although this is a slightly doleful way of describing it, is a little bit like an air accident investigation. We're trying to find out what went wrong. We're not assigning any blame. We're not saying that anyone did anything wrong deliberately. What we're trying to understand is, you understood this, you understood that, it hasn't quite worked. What can we do now to fix that situation? And what's the learning we take from that forwards? And probably create some new text in the guidelines to make sure that nobody has that misunderstanding again in the future.
And what kind of, going back to you, but it also lingers on to what you just said, what kind of organizations are all involved in the automotive committee and in the user experience guidelines?
Yeah, in the automotive committee, it's like one of the broadest and mixed communities. So we have a lot of broadcasters, but we also have manufacturers and OEMs. But this diversity is also giving us the keys how to go forward, because then we also got new questions, new ideas, and we are not only using the workshops, we are also going back to the technical committee, and me and my colleagues will also go to the interoperability workshops there, because it's really important to always step back and see, does everything work as we expected? Because yeah, once in a while it doesn't. So it's really important to bring everything together and use all the knowledge to actually make it happen.
And if you say, me and my colleagues are going to the interoperability workshops, do you mean CARIAD?
Yeah, it's like CARIAD, but you will also see like a lot of other OEMs. You will see the chipset manufacturers. You will see a lot of the broadcasters, and it's really helping because they have a demand. We want feature X and Y in the car. Let's make it work. And so we will see all the parties on one table, either in the workshops or in the interop workshops. So it's really important to use the knowledge of all the parties and actually bringing them to the test.
And how does that relate to creating the user experience guidelines? Because I know in the past we've also made little movies. How is it evolving? What's happening there?
Historically, we knew that we wanted to create some guidelines. So we started putting stuff down. You know, it's always good to just start with something. We started putting stuff down. And as we have evolved that process, we've captured more and more information, and we were able to provide more visual information, you know, diagrams and examples of how things should look. And I think it's fair to say now that it's transitioned from being, at its start, a Word document. It's now migrating into something that's a lot more familiar to people in terms of, this is a guidelines website. It has nicely paginated sections. There are, if you need to find a particular subject, it's very easy to jump to that particular subject, and it makes it much easier for us to expand it, because, you know, when we started with the user guidelines, we were very, very heavily focused on physical layer presentation, like visual presentation. One of the opening things in the guidelines aligns perfectly with what Uli was just saying, which is there needs to be a top-level radio button, and it needs to look like a radio, not some other weird icon that your designer chose because they don't know what a radio icon looks like. But when we're now moving towards is things like, well, what does it mean when you've got voice control over a vehicle? How should voice control for radio in a vehicle work?
And that does feedback, and I asked it earlier, but now I have the experts here, that does feedback to broadcast.
Yes, so it's
voice and broadcast hand in hand.
Yep, it's absolutely essential. If a broadcaster wants their radio station to be reliably found by a driver making a voice request for it, they've got to provide all of the information to make that a successful identification. So a good example we always use is, you may have your official radio station name, which is the radio station name that you market, and it's the station name that you display, but there may well be other unofficial names that people call your radio station. And you need to make sure that even if you don't want to make those unofficial names public, that you're providing them as part of the metadata, so that when your driver asks for, I want to listen to Radio 1, although they haven't said, I want to listen to BBC Radio 1, which is the official name, it still understands that really what you're asking for is BBC Radio 1.
Yes. Sorry, you have to talk.
That's right, I'll keep talking.
I'm getting a cough.
So that's an example of, as technology in the vehicles develops and the opportunities for radio to develop, the purpose of the user experience guidelines, it sits above the technical layer. So our technical committee defines all the technical stuff. It's very much the bits and bytes and individual kind of component elements of the technology, which is like the Lego bricks. Our job is to explain how you put those together, what the broadcaster has to do, what the manufacturer has to do. And as we create new things, we have to explain how to use them as well.
And going back to you, thank you for switching off when I was coughing. The metadata, we heard about that. And I said it before, and I just prompted because it is so important, and I know many broadcasters talk about it, but don't really actually, on board level, are really engaged in metadata. And it's very important. But what are your main objectives in the automotive committee? Is that user experience metadata? What can you tell me about your priorities in that group of?
In that group, we are actually picking, like, every year along the strategy, like, the major issues we found or the major lack thereof, like metadata or missing of phonemes, because usually we also get through either the broadcasters, customer surveys, we get to learn, I can't find my station, because even I learned this. We were with the Audi at a Genf EBU meeting, and I learned, you couldn't find any station because they had weird names and they couldn't be found. It was a lot of letters, a lot of numbers. It was really a big thing. So we decided, let's put this in the UX guidelines. Maybe it's not UI, but it's for the whole user experience. If you can't ask for your station, you are supposed to, because it's about driver distraction. You don't want to scroll through 100 DAB stations, because the selectability and the variety is very good, but you can't have your eyes for 10 minutes on the screen. So it needs to have an easy way to actually find it.
And if we look at Android Automotive,
Yeah.
how does that relate with DAB+ or broadcast in general?
So I think what you've seen a lot of today is some really impressive technology in vehicles. And behind that, increasingly, is Android and Android Automotive. And Google are very, very keen to encourage automotive manufacturers to use Android Automotive as their base platform. Now, that may look more or less googly, depending on the manufacturer, but it's certainly becoming a very, very prolific platform. What's slightly difficult for us in a European focus is that Google's history, its backstory, is all very North American orientated. So most of what Android Automotive thinks about in the radio domain is very much in the context of North American FM radio. And unfortunately, European digital radio is some distance away from North American FM radio. So what we find, and what we're aware that everybody's having to do, is make up the bits that are missing. And it's not really very interesting or helpful. It's a lot of boring, repetitive work that every OEM is having to do to patch up exactly the same holes in Android Automotive. So one of the things that we can do, and the purpose of organizations like WorldDAB, like Radio DNS, is to identify a problem where it's in all of our common interests to fix it with a common solution. It's what we would call basic plumbing. There's no competitive benefit in fixing this individually. We're all just burning resource that we could be putting into user experience definition, product differentiation, anything else other than fixing up these missing gaps in Android Automotive. So one of the things we're able to do is corral together a bunch of people with the skills to fix this problem, fix it, and then go back to it and Google and say, here is a fix for a problem. Please, you take this into Android Automotive, and then we'll have to stop fixing it all ourselves.
Yeah. So we're nearly at the end. What I take out from this automotive work, it's very practical.
Yeah.
And I know it's very passionate as well, because you put in a lot of time, effort, and passion to get all these problems that are out there organized and try to find solutions for it. So it's not about selling a product or one solution. It's about bringing together the technical expertise, broadcaster needs, automotive reality, with one goal: improving the radio experience for the driver. I can wrap it up like that. That's your work. So, and that is the right note at the end of this day. Collaboration, as we started off this morning, is so important. Practical guidance and keeping broadcast radio and DAB+ prominent, accessible, and easy to use in the car. So thank you, Gregor. Thank you, Nick, for this little interview. And I think over to you, Julia.